So, a real quick review of what I would like you to do in this workshop. We are going over the test um, that that you're going to use for your usability testing in whatever stages it's in. Along with this video, I am posting a link to a Google Drive folder. You actually have it already. Now that I think about it, you actually have the Google Drive folder. I sent it to you last week. Check there. If your testing material is not in there, get it in there ASAP. Needs to happen during what would have been our class period today. So please do that, because everything else that I'm going to talk about here today, everything else that we're doing this week kind of hinges on that. So please get it done. So let's talk about testing the test. You can get to this slideshow through that link right there. It's also in your slideshows folder on Google Drive. Just go through Blackboard to content to the slideshows link, and it should be somewhere in there. But let's talk about testing the test. Okay, so one thing that I want to go over, one thing that I would have asked in the beginning in class for input from all of you, is what can we import from those heuristic evaluations, from Nielsen's heuristics, when we design user tests? So what values, what heuristics can we import? How can we bring those to bear on user tests? A lot of the time, we don't think of not a lot of the time. It's easy to not think of user tests as something that is designed, something that needs to be useful itself. But it is true, because the easier it is for your user to understand your test, the easier it is for them to go through it, and then the better your feedback or your results are going to be. So we need to think about how we import these design ideas into our critique, our feedback to one another. So before you get started, I want you to think about how you can import those design ideals, because that's one of the themes you're going to see throughout this. Okay. So what do you look for when you are critiquing someone else's test? So the things that you want to look for are whether this test is doable in a reasonable amount of time. I said that you want to aim for around 10 minutes. Definitely no more than 10 minutes. Based on the level of revision that we're doing in this class, 10 minutes is probably even too long. So if you don't think the person can get through, if you don't think this group has written a test that someone can get through in 10 minutes, that needs to be made clear. I would also stress this idea that, is the test doable, right? Is it doable, period? Is this something that we can expect users to do given the tools that we're giving them, right? We are not using full-fledged prototypes here. We're using mock-ups. We're using low fidelity prototypes. We're not going to the length of putting a full high fidelity prototype that's one step away from our release candidate. We're not going to the length of putting that together. So are these instructions something that is doable, given that that is what we're using to test that mockup? Is the task understandable? Is it clear from the way that they've written and what they wrote, and how they listed out the steps, the different tasks, the different activities? Are those understandable based on what they've given you? And then in the same line, are the instructions clear? Is there anything that stands as an obstacle or a potential obstacle to understanding? Is there anything that made you question whether you read something right? So if you stumble over some instructions or whatnot, then that needs to be some level of feedback that you offer to your to the instructions. So really, we want to make sure that we bring in that heuristic of consistency, right? We want to write in such a way that we want to write in such a way that people can bring their previous mental models to bear on what we are writing. So that means we're not trying to be wordy, we're not trying to be profuse, we're not trying to sound academic at this point. We are trying to write things in the vernacular, meaning the language that people are used to. So we want to make sure that it's written clearly and effectively. And then after you've gone through all of their work, after you've answered those questions, give the group some feedback. Structure your feedback around the ways that they could improve their tests, their features, the features of their tests. This is also how we kind of, play out feedback on design, right? So each point of feedback should incorporate some element of the framework you identified in part one. Part one was where we talked about the heuristics. I guess I can come back. This is part one. Right. So what heuristics are you looking for? What are you importing? Well, when you go to give your feedback, you want to make it plain that this is a thing we're talking about. You want some point of feedback to corroborate what you identified as a goal of your testing. So if the instructions are unclear, or if they're written in a way that maybe instructions should not be written, if they're written more academically, or if they give too much detail, if they lead the tester, that would be something you could comment on, because those go back to the heuristics. And you don't have to explicitly mention the heuristics. The heuristics are just there for organizational purposes, as a thought exercise. You don't have to explicitly say this point right here, this question here violates heuristic one. That's unnecessary. You can just say like, this doesn't make the test progress visible, or something like that, if that's the thing they're trying to do. So I have the questions here again. If we were in class, this is what I would flash up on the screen while you did the review, but you can pull it up on your own. So as an example here, this is one about a design, but we can use the same structure to offer feedback on tests. So they say if the objective is for users to use filters more often, putting it in the top along with the search bar might not be effective because it gets lost in all other components of the header. So what we've done here is identify the objective that the people had when they put the test together. So you want to make sure that you understand that before you offer feedback. What are their objectives in asking this question or asking for this task? And then we offer feedback on how to improve that objective. Notice that they also give an explanation of why they're saying that in here, right? Putting it in the top might not be effective, right? So there's an explanation of why they're giving this feedback. So we have this structure of identifying the objective, making it clear to your recipient that you understand what they're going for. Then we put the reasoning why, or the problem that we're having, and then we identify the solution, a potential solution. So you want to structure your feedback that way. I'm not going to give you a limit on how much feedback to offer. I'm not going to give you an upper or a lower limit, but there should be a decent amount of feedback, all right? And that's about the explanation that I give. This is fairly free form. Once you are done, write it all up and drop it in the Google Drive folder for your group. As a matter of fact, let me just go in and pull that up. This is the wrong folder, sorry y'all. So I showed this to you in another video, but there's testing materials and mockups. There's one folder for each group. And let's say that you were assigned Tinder. You would go in here because you're Hulu, and you put your feedback into that folder, okay, as a document. So that's where we're at. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. My goal is for you to get this done today. So the evaluations need to be back in that folder by tonight. That's what I'm going to look for. So please make sure you do that. If you do not have your test in the Google Drive folder yet, it needs to be in there ASAP before class time today. All right. So yeah, any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all on Thursday where we will go over the next stage in this final product. All right. Bye, y'all.